I'm Rob,
I'm John,
and this is the Mint One podcast.
where we talk all things NFTs and the rise of blockchain gaming.
So this week, we're going to talk about the Steams of Web3.
There's plenty of them out there. Some are good, some are not so good. Let's dive into it.
Okay, before we get started, we have to ask that if you are enjoying this podcast, and you should be, we ask that you follow us.
They should be enjoying
They
it.
should be. Or they ought to be, if I'm going to really fall into my English roots. Follow us on everything. Like us on everything. 5-star review on everything that gives you stars. Subscribe to us and leave us comments on YouTube about who you want to be guests. We've got some exciting guests coming up still. We've had some brilliant guests in the past. So let us know who you want, and we will wrangle them and bring them in front of your eyes or ears, or both. Right. So this week we're talking about Steam, the Steam of Web3, which has been, that term has been plaguing blockchain gaming since I was trying to look back on Token Gamer when I started using that term, and it was around mid-2021. So it's been around a while, but what's the prompts this particular week?
So this week, Gods Unchained, which is one of the most popular Web3 TCGs out there, built by Mutable Games and on IMX, has now been released on the Epic Games Store. It's fully available. You just head to the Epic Games Store, type in Gods Unchained, and you can download it, launch it from there. And it's been a while since we've heard much news of one of these Web3 games coming to, the Epic Games Store in particular. I know me and you, Rob, off stream have talked about some ones which have been announced and then been removed, and it's a bit what's going on there. But, Gods Unchained is a big name in Web3 gaming, and seeing it come on the Epic Games Store is kind of a big moment, or at least I thought it was. Around about the time it was announced, if you looked at all the various graphs for, God's token, etc., they all went up in value, although I don't think that's the best marker of whether a game's doing well. That's just crypto bros speculating. But it seems to be this kind of zenith that every high potential Web3 game aims for at the moment. It's like, if we build a quality game, we've got to get it on one of these huge digital distribution marketplaces, and that's going to make us explode and give us all this exposure to Web2 players, and it'll be their golden ticket to the good times. And of course, there's many companies out there who are trying to create, as you say, the Steam of Web3, which, I've been hearing it ever since I came into the space, and you've been hearing it a lot longer than I have. There's plenty of platforms, as I say, that want to hold themselves up to that mantra, but all are doing it to different degrees of success, let's say. Are there any in particular that spring to mind for you?
Well, I don't know where to start this first. So I wanted to read you something. It's just a list, an exciting list. Right?
Let's go for it.
So I typed in Steam into Token Gamer to see how many times I've mentioned it in the past just over 2 years, around 2 years, almost exactly, actually. Now, here, so what Steam is, I'm sure everyone listening knows, the biggest game distribution platform. So indie developers, major AAA publishers can have their game put on what is a universal library/store, and people can buy or download free-to-play games and play them. So it's really a games platform where you can get games. And Web3 gaming platforms where you can get games are naturally synonymous, or at least analogous with Steam. So I decided to see how many are close to Steam in their scope, but have narrowed it down to Web3 games. Now, the reason for this, which we'll come back to, is Steam banned blockchain and NFT games and anything that uses crypto or blockchain in any way. So that spawns 1 million of them. Right, are you ready for this? In the last 2 years, here are the ones that I have mentioned in the same breath as Steam because they have similarities. Some of them call themselves Web3 Steam. Some of them mention Steam but think they're much, much better than Steam. And some of them don't mention it, but there's obvious parallels. Right, here we go. Ultra, Immutable, Loot Rush, Elixir, Fractal, Hyperplay, Exterio, Sort of. I'm going to say sort of here and there because we'll come back to it. C2X, Game Dosi, Zai, Sort of. Arjuna, Prom, Wemix, IntelliRx, Blockborn, Flamestore, and then I've put in very sort of brackets Epic Game Store. So there, I mean, it is, and that's not an exhaustive list. That's the list of everything I've bothered to cover. There's a lot of ones that I just haven't been particularly interested in.
Really?
Now, the ones that sort of tend to be that they wanted to build a layer 2 or layer 3 blockchain for games, and then they wanted some sort of library for people to access those games. So they're not really trying to fill Steam's shoes, but they are still a Web3 gaming platform that distributes games. Again, Immutable kind of falls into that that bracket as well. I'd say, so not to rush through the episode, but I'd say my favourite of that list is probably, it's between 3, but the top 2 are probably Fractal and Elixir for me. I'm excluding Immutable for now, otherwise Immutable will probably be in that conversation. Fractal and Elixir, I would say, are the best. Fractal particularly with its integrated streaming and tournaments, and I've talked about that platform on and off for the whole time we've had this podcast, and I'm still a big fan of it. And now it's multi-chain as well, which is good because Solana got in lots of trouble with stuff. Anyway, Elixir, again, they've been kind of creeping up. They've had a few good partnerships. They recently partnered. Let me just get the. They've recently partnered with GameStop. For GameStop Player, I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous episode, but I could not be more confused about GameStop's stance on Web3. It hired, went all in, then kind of wavered, then the NFT marketplace just died more or less in terms of trading volume. Then they U-turned and left Web3, and now they keep announcing stuff. They're doing stuff like they did something with a game. They've done something with multiple platforms. I don't know what they're up to. Are they in? Are they out?
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
I have no idea.
It is really tough to kind of figure out what their position is. I mean, there's a lot of people that came across Immutable and the game's on Immutable for the first time because of GameStop's marketplace and wallet.
That's cool.
And it seems now that Immutable kind of pivoting towards focusing on the Epic Games partnership, and then, well, I say partnership, they've just got one game listed on the store, but still that means 2 teams are talking. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, onboarding big Web2 studios and that sort of thing. So,
Elixir and
strange.
Fractal, I'd say, are the best right now, to my eyes. The third one in my top 3 is Ultra. But Ultra is more promise than current substance, and that's not a slight. They're still in an earlier stage to my eyes than Fractal, at least. However, Ultra is unambiguously the biggest culprit for mentioning Steam when talking about their product. Now, I can't find this exact quote. I saw a tweet saying that last week, was it? Or like a couple of days ago, one of the co-CEOs of Ultra called it blockchain Steam on steroids. Jesus. And I saw it bounced around in a few places, and it was in quotation marks. Now, I found the interview with blockchaingamer.biz. I found the interview. I haven't found that exact quote, but what they said. So the question was put to them: do you think Steam on the blockchain is a good comparison point for Ultra? And they said, am I going to read all of this?
That's the most softball question.
It is a softball, but it's also exactly kind of what I wanted to ask them.
Sure.
They basically say the big difference between Steam and Ultra is that Ultra has an entire ecosystem. What they mean by that is there's more sort of integration for businesses, and they've got SDKs and bits and pieces that make creating a blockchain game easier, whereas obviously Steam, Epic Games, you could argue, does. They do. I mean, to download Unreal Engine, you need to install Epic Games. So they are closer to the sort of Web3 ecosystem. But there is a lot of mention of Steam. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a direct question here. Do we need Web3 Steam?
I want to say yes, but it could be that we already have it in the Epic Games Store.
Yeah,
I don't think, and I've had this discussion with someone earlier this week. Someone asked me directly, do you think Epic would create their own NFT marketplace if they're starting to host all these Web3 games? I don't think they will. But the only evidence I have to get off that is for the Web3 games that are on the Epic Games Store so far, you're talking your Blancos, your Gods Unchained, etc. The only reference they ever put to marketplaces or how you can actually interact and trade with your NFTs is typically in the FAQs for that game, where they just say, oh, this game's developers recommend this, if there is a recommendation, or they'll just put something generic. So if you go to Gods Unchained's FAQs on the Epic Games Store, one of the questions is, it's something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing here, where can I trade Gods Unchained assets or NFTs? And it's like, Gods Unchained recommend Aqua, here's a link. And that's all they say. And the rest of the information on the page is just, I think warning is a bit too strong of the word, but they make it very upfront. As soon as you go to Gods Unchained page on the Epic Games Store, obviously you got the trailer and the images. You know, if you're familiar with Epic Games or Steam, you'll know exactly what you see. But before you get into any of like the longer descriptions and what you can expect in the game, it's this big clear box that just states right at the top, this is a blockchain/NFT game. Yeah. And then goes into this whole, hey, this game supports or includes the use of blockchain or crypto or NFTs. And then, please be advised, before purchasing, do your own research, etc., etc. So they're really trying to, it's not like they're trying to get Web3 games past anyone or try and sell this to anyone as a Web2 game and kind of slip the Web3 under the rug. It's very front and center. Hey, this game has NFTs and crypto in it. If this isn't your thing, then, you cannot play it. But if the game looks cool and you want to give it a go, then hey, you can play it through our store.
I think it's fair.
So, yeah, I think it's a good way of going about it. And obviously it's far too early to tell what the impact on player numbers will be for Gods Unchained. I know for Blancos, arguably it hasn't made too much of an impact, or I haven't seen any figures that are like, oh, Blancos 10x is its player base, and that's on the Epic Games Store, and it's been on there for a while. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's different yet to see.
Well, no, maybe this isn't a fair comment. I was going to say it's a different, and it is a different kind of game, but do people search for those sort of games in the same way? Because it's more of a social game. Do you search for social games in the same way you search? Like, if I'm looking for, obviously I'm a big MMO fan, many times I've gone to Steam and typed in MMORPG and looked at the genre and seen what's top of their sales charts. Yep. What's top on active players that week or that month or that day. If that happens on Epic Games, which I'm sure it does for TCGs, then it could be a good channel. It's very hard to read. It can't be a bad thing. Yeah. But it's how much of a positive impact it has. Does Epic Games have any good TCGs?
That's what I was just thinking. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of any really high quality TCGs that are on the Epic Games Store. Someone is definitely going to let me know that I'm wrong as soon as I publish this.
Yeah, that's good.
As far as I'm aware, I don't think there are any. And that's something that I think hurt Blancos on the Epic Games Store, because you go to the Epic Games Store, you can play Fall Guys for free. Yeah. And Fall Guys has a huge player base, and every game is a bunch of fun. There's absolutely no issue.
It's one of their most played games, isn't it?
Yeah, and I used to play so much Fall Guys. It's so much fun. But yeah, it's super easy to get into a game, takes no time at all. Whereas if you have a game like Blancos, and social games like this rely on having a strong, reliable player base, so that, whether you're logging in at 7 in the evening or 2 a.m, you can find people to play with. And whilst Blancos' matchmaking system is actually quite good, you could find that you're playing against the same people all the time, or at certain times of the day you might struggle to find like lobbies to be in. So, and yeah, if you've got Fall Guys there, I literally have the choice between playing Fall Guys or Blancos, and I'm going to choose Fall Guys every time. It's a more polished experience. There's more people. It's more fun. The music's great. The gameplay is amazing, etc., etc. So this kind of brings me on to something I wanted to bring up here. Is as soon as you start putting Web3 games on ostensibly Web2 marketplaces, Web3 games aren't competing against Web3 games anymore. I mean, they kind of weren't really, but that's how a lot of people in Web3 used to, or are kind of used to thinking about it, is, oh, do I want to play this Web3 game or this Web3 game? Does this one give me more return on my time investment, or is this one more fun, or does this one have more players? Whereas if you have a Web3 section to a Web2 marketplace, it's, oh, hey, do I want to play this Web3 game where I have a chance to earn 50 cents an hour? Or do I want to play a game that's actually a lot more fun? And hopefully, in time, these Web3 experiences are going to match up to the Web2 ones. And I think Gods Unchained is one of the first big Web3 games to hit a Web2 marketplace and actually be on the same standard of quality.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it will be interesting to see how Gods Unchained lands in particular, but kind of going a few steps back and looking at all of these competitors to, become the Steam of Web3 or the Epic Games Store of Web3 or whatever. I've covered some of them on NFT Insider before, Flame Store, Earn Alliance was one I covered ages ago, although they seem to be trying to turn themselves into a social media platform now.
Okay.
Whatever. Ultra kind of has a similar issue to that, where they're like, hey, we want to be the Steam of Web3, but we also want to hold esports tournaments, and we also want a marketplace, and we also want this. It's like, Steam is amazing because they focused, first and foremost, right back in the early days, of being the one place you could go to download and play any PC game you would want. Yeah. And then over time, it's like, oh, hey, we need a reason for people to stick around, so they introduce, friends lists and then achievements and, CSGO items and all sorts of other reasons to have people engage with the Steam network. And the Epic Games Store has done this in a very similar way. Their strategy for the first couple of years was, we are just going to pay developers exorbitant amounts of money to have their games on our platform because it's the games that bring people in. It's not the social elements or that you need to have good games. Yeah. That's all people really care about. And I'm sure like Web3 people might want some staking features or whatever, but that shouldn't really, at least from my point of view, be the focus of a digital distribution platform. It should all be about the games. And then if you start to get people come in and people are naturally coming to your platform because you're an exclusive place to have amazing games, then, you can add your social features and your bits on the side and all this other stuff. But yeah, I think that's where so many of these competitor Web3 digital distribution platforms really fall down, is that they want to go in a million places at once. And you look at the actual games on the service, which is realistically the only reason you're going to go to that site, and there's nothing much there. That's not to say that I think there's going to be some strong challenges. I think Fractal, I agree with you, is doing a fantastic job here. I think, they're kind of the way that they present the games to the people, and, it's very, very easy to just head to the Fractal website and be like, oh, that game looks cool. Oh, there's a button there that says I can play it. Click the button, and I'm playing the game. And that's what people want. They want it as simple as possible. But I think if I have to match Fractal against Steam, if they ever accept Web3 games again, or proper Web3 games, not all will accept your Web3 game, but you've got to take all the Web3 aspects out of it, which is a bit redundant, or the Epic Games Store, then I don't think it's really a matchup. I'm sure there will be a third place player, but I don't think there's a serious one there quite yet.
So I want to play a bit of devil's advocate here. So I agree that it seems like the aims are too diffuse for many of these startups, but I'm going to give two defenses for that. One, the problem is there isn't enough playable Web3 games.
No, for sure.
So if you only focus on the best games, you don't really have a lot right now. There isn't much you can do, which I think is one problem.
Yeah.
The second problem is a little bit, I'll call it the World of Warcraft problem, right? Because every MMO that comes out is compared to World of Warcraft, and it has to, upon release, upon its simplest form, it has to compete with a game that's been iterating on it for 20 years. And this is why we keep coming into the same issues where people release an MMO and they're like, oh, I'm just going back to WoW. Like, it doesn't have Ranked Arena, it doesn't have Mythic Plus, it doesn't have all these things that I love. And you're like, yeah, but it's just come out. Like, when WoW came out in 2004, it had barely anything. Like, it didn't have Battlegrounds, it didn't have Arena, it didn't have mythics. It didn't have raids at that point. It had nothing. But it had the time to, proceed. So I think the only two ways around that are, one, throw ungodly amounts of money and be really diffuse with your aims, have the marketplace, have Twitch integration or stream integration, have all these social features. Or, and this is the harder one of the two really, is innovate. And that's where I would say probably Fractal is leading, because their platform is different to the others. And like you say, like you can just hop in a game, and I'm not sure it's made by the guy who made Twitch. So Justin Can knows a bit about gaming and making a gaming platform, particularly
Twitch
a social
it was
one.
Bad.
Yeah, Justin.tv and then Twitch. I'm not entirely sure I can unpack what makes it unique, but it has elements to it that is cohesive, and everything's in kind of one place. Like it has a marketplace, and it has streaming, and it has competitions, and it has news and blogs, and it has new games and charts, and it's all on one page. Like you click through into the things, but it's very well designed. You're not all over the place. You're not having to. It's not like different modules that all tacked together. It's in one central place, which is why I think of that list. I don't know what Ultra are going to pull off. I know they've got a lot of money behind them. They've also got a lot of experience. The two guys that run it have done a lot of interesting stuff in gaming before. So maybe they pull it off. But it's a difficult problem, and I'm not entirely. I mean, how do you compete with Steam? The second this is the problem they have. The second Steam goes, go on then, we'll have NFT and blockchain games. Everyone's dead in the water, apart from maybe Epic Game Store, because that's where everyone defaults to. Even though people don't, have their criticisms of Steam these days, that's just where you default to.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major issues that a lot of these up and coming Web3 Steams have, and it's actually something we talk about in the Atomic Hub team quite often. Is from a pure entertainment point of view. A lot of people are playing around with NFTs in their spare time. They spend all day at work, and then they come home, and it's like, oh, I wonder how my NFTs are doing. I wonder what's happening in the space. At that point, you're not competing against other Web3 services. You're competing against every other entertainment medium. And if there's any semblance of choice there, people are just going to go to the platform that's the most reliable, easiest to use, gives them the best user experience. And with Fractal in particular, their website's perfect for this. Front and center, I'm on their website right now. On the left-hand side, you can just see a list of games and various ways to keep up to date. Right in the middle of the screen, you can see a video for Fractal, and you can kind of get an idea of the gameplay. You're like, oh, okay, this looks kind of cool. It's kind of reminds me a lot of Tribes Ascend and games like that. And it's like, they've got a tournament going on, and there's a $5,000 prize pool. So, there's money in this, and there's a semblance of a competitive scene there, and it seems very cool. And you could scroll down the page and, find a few other games that are on the platform. You can, it's just very pleasant to interact with. But more importantly, it's showing games that are offering something not new, but something unique. It's a shooter, but it has its own unique style, its own unique gameplay. It tends to kind of harken back to these kind of FPS games from years ago, and it kind of gives that kind of deja vu. And if I had to Elixir as a comparison, and just for full disclosure, NFT Insider is a partner of Elixir, but this is I think a very key piece of feedback if any of them are listening to this. They have this kind of rotation of videos on their homepage when you go to their site that you kind of go through 5 or 6 different games, and it shows you a little teaser and a little bit of info, which is great. But one of the first games I see, and this is no kind of I'm not intending to talk badly about this game, but one of the games showcased is a game called No Way Back, which is 100% a Web3 Fortnite clone. They use the same art style, the same map, the same UI icons. And me, if I'm a Web 2 user, I'm coming to this site, I'm like, oh, they've got a Fortnite ripoff. And the problem with platforms that put these kind of games front and center is it immediately reminds you of a game that's better and has more players.
Yeah.
So if I look at No Way Back, I'm like, why don't I just play Fortnite? It's been a long time since I played Fortnite, don't get me wrong. But if I had the choice between playing this Web3 version of Fortnite or Fortnite, I would just play Fortnite.
Do you think that's a little bit of a hangover from play to earn? Is that these clones had an angle when people were earning from playing them? You know, if you had Fortnite and then you had Web3 rip-off Fortnite, but you could earn $20 a day, $30 a day playing the Web3 rip-off version, you might seriously play that because, well, you'll earn some money while having fun. But they've lost that angle. The angle doesn't exist anymore.
Play to earn died 2 years ago. Like and I think there's a lot of these Web3 sites, and to be fair, a lot of NFT projects, especially new ones, that tried to hang their hat on that. I'm not going to get into names, but you know, I speak to a lot of brand new NFT projects or people coming new into the space, and a lot of them, when it comes to talking about NFTs they want to sell, it's like, oh, we want to do some kind of rev share, we want to get people involved, and I've just straight up with them, look, people don't care. Like, the only way a rev share system works is if you have a massive project and it's something that's actually worth caring about. But let's say you start a project, you know, I'm going to give 10% of all the revenue we generate back to the community. I mean, that only works if your project takes off, but it's not a way to justify selling NFTs for $100 a pop. And I think with a lot of these Web3 games, just because you have Fortnite, but you can earn a token, or it kind of looks like Diablo, but you can earn a token, like, people don't care. They'd rather just play what is the better game.
Well, exactly. And
speaking of which, I've not played Diablo 4 yet. I really need to get my hands on that.
I tried it. It's I've played it a fair bit, actually, a little bit. It's good. I mean, I didn't like Diablo 3, but I do like Diablo 4. So it's clearly
it's funny you should mention Diablo 3 with a real money auction house.
Yeah,
that was something we could. I think it's something we have discussed on the podcast.
Well, I think we have,
right? Yeah, and it's. I've seen a couple of YouTube videos more recently where people have kind of revisited that topic and tried to compare it towards kind of the Web3 space and how, you know, we proved this kind of thing didn't work 8 years ago.
Misses the point entirely, because without ownership, what are you even comparing? I mean, it's just. It was an awful idea, the real money auction house. A horrendous idea. Just a money spinner. It was terrible.
Well, I think we've said before on the podcast, or at least, you know, I remember saying this, is that I do think having real money stroke Web3 aspects in a game can work, but it has to be incredibly well designed. It can't go the Diablo model where everything is just available on the auction house, and if you just come into the game with $100, you can instantly get the best items. It ruins the economy. You know,
but it ruins the game, even for the player.
Oh yeah,
even
absolutely.
For the person with that $100 to burn, it'll ruin the game for you. You're not playing the game. You're trying to skip as much as you can.
No,
and there was just dull.
Oh God, I've been watching Waffle, that's his name. He's never going to see this, but I'm going to give him credit for this anyway. He's been making some videos about Gran Turismo 7 lately, and how they're kind of, hey, spend real money to earn in-game currency that you then use to buy exorbitantly priced cars. It's just a horrific system for Gran Turismo, and it's part of a wider issue of that game. But I think that's the way a lot of Web3 game developers, the majority of which are first-time game developers, are approaching Web3 in the most part. It's, oh, hey, you know, you can only buy items in our game using our own native token, and of course you have to go to an exchange to buy that, and of course we're going to profit off that as well. And it's, there's so many, for all Web3 talks about being this open system anyone can contribute to, there's so many kind of closed walls in Web3 gaming.
There is,
and I'm hoping.
Sorry, I was going to say, that list is exactly what you're saying. That list, how many walled gardens are in that list?
Oh, so many. It's so bizarre to me that, again, Web3 is built off this idea of open walls, and every platform just wants to build their own walls. So, and I think that's, and this is going to sound like a horrible plug, but I'm going to say it anyway. The new Atomic multi-chain marketplace, the whole point of it is we shouldn't have walled gardens between blockchains. Like, if a game is a good blockchain game, it doesn't matter what chain it's on. We should just let people go search about them and buy the assets for them if they want. And I'm hoping that starts to become more the case across Web3. I know for we've talked on the podcast before whether Epic are deliberately choosing to partner with Web3 games that are being built on Unreal Engine. I don't know what Gods Unchained is built on, I'm going to be honest.
No,
but
you'd think Unity. Just because Unity is good for stuff like that, particularly like mobile games. Unity is very good, but
yeah, I think if I'm right, they haven't taken like, oh, we'll only accept games on one chain for the Epic Games Store. It's all games on different chains, and they've kind of taken the same stance. It doesn't matter. The game just needs to be good.
Yeah, it's definitely multi-chain. Although the Forge Arena's not up there, I messaged Minak about that. And they just want to get the game into a good state before they have the store page back up. But they're still partnered and they're still going on there. So that's Wax. Then I can think of Polygon games. Blancos is on Polygon, right?
Yep. And of course, Gods Unchained is Immutable.
Yeah, I think was there a Solana game? Well, anyway, they're definitely chain agnostic, which is what you want to be. I mean, although we are, I mean, how many times we've spoken about this, but the tribalism in blockchains, like ecosystems, but I mean, who really cares? It's kind of like your internet provider. If you're getting, 1 gig down, you don't care who's getting you that gig. You really don't. If you've got fiber broadband, all you care about is uptime and speed. That's it. And as long as it works, then you don't care who provided you it. It just doesn't. It's irrelevant.
And this just to kind of extend this point. I have this exact issue with a number of these Web3 marketplaces. I know Fractal has gone beyond this, but initially they were only for Solana games, right?
Yes, they were. Yeah.
And then looking at Ultra, a lot of what Ultra are doing revolves around, oh, hey, we're using our own in-house standard for our marketplace and all this stuff. And it's like, well, why don't you just adopt one of the bajillion open NFT standards?
Yeah.
Speaking of all of the kind of Web3 Steam competitors we have, I mean, there might be, but there's no major players that spring to mind for this. There's none of them that take a proper open walls approach to being a Web3 digital distribution platform. They're all, oh, hey, we are our Web3 Steam, but we only cater, or we mostly cater for games on Antelope, or we cater for games on Solana or Ethereum. There is no right now Web3 Steam or Web3 Epic Games. So it's like if you're playing games on PC and you have no idea what to play, or you just want to keep on top of the latest releases, it doesn't matter whether you like management sims, motorsport games, FPS, MMO, trading cards, arcade games, roguelites, whatever. You go to Steam, and nothing springs to mind for me for Web3 for that. There's no, I want to go to, if I want to know what the best or most recent releases in Web3 games are, I'm not going to go to a marketplace. I'm probably going to either look in my own emails for press releases, or I'm going to go to a news site. When Web3 games, that's a huge problem for Web3 gaming. If the best way for you to keep track of what the latest games are is heading to a news website, Token Gamer and NFT Insider are great resources for finding out about games and getting our thoughts, etc. But for you as a gamer, you shouldn't have to go to a news website to figure out what the latest game releases are, really. You should go to a game distribution platform.
I guess this comes back to the question I asked you right at the start, but do we want the Web3 games to be separate? Do we want them to be treated independently?
No, probably not.
I don't see value in it. I'd rather, one of the things I wrote in the article about the press release for Gods Unchained going on Epic Games is, what I really want is just even 5% of TCG players to get a feel for owning the cards.
Yeah.
And just seeing the benefit of blockchain technology. Forget the money, forget trading, even though that's a core part of this, is a trading card game. But just having ownership of it, and you can move it between your wallets, and if you got banned from the game, or the game shut down, or they went bankrupt, you still got that. I mean, it's not that it wouldn't be worth anything, but you own that thing, and it's like, I want them to see the benefits, and I guess it's not easy to demonstrate the benefits. And you can always say, what's the point? if it's not financial, what's the point? And to me, it's the same as achievements in games. I kind of care about achievements. I'm interested in achievements, and my Steam or World of Warcraft or whatever, I like that I have those achievements, and those achievements run independently to what I do. And I think it would be, if you get banned on Steam or banned on World of Warcraft, then you've lost those achievements. You can't sell achievements. You could sell getting them. You can't sell them once you've got them. And I still like the fact that I have that, and I would like to have that without the risk of ever losing them, which is kind of what the angle is. But one more before we start wrapping up. There's one more angle I want to discuss on this. Now, I've forgotten who sent this tweet, but it caught a bit of traction this week, where somebody said that the aim shouldn't be to build a Web3 Steam. We should be looking to build Web3 overlays for games that run a bit like Overwolf. And this is, we've seen overlays of Overwolf is so funny to me, because when that came out, it was a joke. Like, I'm sorry, Overwolf folks. I was made to install it every time I bought a game, because it was like bloatware that you were forcing down my throat. Right. Now, I really like it. Like, I use it. There's a few things I use it for. A few different games utilize it, and it's good. And it feels like the overlays are making a comeback. Like, I don't know if you've ever played Teamfight Tactics, the League of Legends, also Battler. Overlays are very big in that, because it can help you with team composition and information, in-game information constantly. And I think League of Legends has one as well, probably the same one. And we have seen a few Web3, was it TSM and Blitz that partnered with Avalanche for some sort of esports overlay or something like that?
Yeah, this was after TSM had to cut their FTX sponsorship, wasn't it?
Yes, it was after that. It was definitely, I remember writing that, TSM has had a few little hiccups so far.
They know how to choose their Web3 companies, that's for sure.
Yes. And then you've got Gamergains, who I've worked with for full disclosure. But I do really like that. I think that platform has so much potential, where you're just playing Web2 games, but anything that's got basically an API where they can track what you've done in game. They can set little quests. So like Call of Duty will be like, get 10 headshots and you'll get our Gamergains token, which I don't think you can sell it at the moment because it's still in beta, but you could sell it. But I've said this to the co-founders, for me the exciting thing is you could automate little tournaments and esports things, which is good, but also that token could be used to buy stuff for those games that you played. And that's when it gets interesting, because let's say you played 1,000 hours of Rocket League and you finally got enough token to buy an exclusive car that's only on Gamergains. That's when things get really interesting to me. And it seems outlandish, but it's possible.
It is possible. I feel if, let's say that example happened and, some Web3 overlay platform partnered with Psyonix, which, is now owned by Epic, so it's not a huge stretch of the imagination. No. It might happen. You install this overlay, score 10 goals in a day, and then you can use whatever token that overlay platform uses to get an exclusive car. That essence of getting exclusive in-game items through a Web3 overlay would generate so much furore and debate in the ecosystem. It would be incredibly hotly debated. But I feel like I don't feel there's a situation where Web3 games or Web3 overlays or any aspect of Web3 technology in gaming becomes mainstream without there being this crux point where there's anger and screaming and arguments.
I swear this is just because of the word crypto or blockchain.
Oh yeah,
or
almost
NFT.
Certainly.
Because have a look at the moment. This is a perfect example. At the moment in Rocket League, you can get that battle bus car that was probably the rarest car in the game, because you only got it if you played, if I remember rightly, you only got it if you played the beta of Rocket League. It might have even been closed beta. Basically, very few people ever had it. You almost never saw it. Now, Epic Games is giving a version of that car available to any player that links to their Epic Games account. So even if you play on Steam, you can, if you install the Epic Games Store, you can link your account and you'll get that exclusive car. How is that different? It's just, it's funneling people into different things. This isn't a criticism of you. I agree. If that happened, there would be an uproar. But it's silly, really, because that is an exclusive item by using a certain platform. It's the exact same thing, but it's not an NFT, so nobody's really whinging. It's just crazy. Yeah.
I think as long as you can avoid using the term NFT at all, you might get away with it.
Digital, collectible.
The idea of, I mean, it's been years since I used Overwolf. I remember using Overwolf back in, Christ, it must have been like 2013, 14. And yeah, back then it was just bloatware. I'm not gonna lie, it was awful.
But do you remember they were trying to replace Ventrilo?
Yes, I do.
They were trying to replace that, and then they integrated TeamSpeak for a minute. I think they buy one of them. I think they bought one of them and tried. I think they bought TeamSpeak and tried to integrate it and then killed it.
TeamSpeak days, Jesus! It's what a piece of software that is. I'm glad that it's consigned to history, but
yeah. Every time someone's hearing that as they turn their mic on.
God, it was awful. Anyway, it's just a bizarre one. I do think none of these Web3 overlay services that are available now have really taken off. But if we can get to the point where there's a popular game out there and one of these Web3 overlay services just proliferates through the community and the perks for using it are just so obvious and using that overlay is so easy that it becomes a no-brainer, then that starts to kind of fundamentally change the experience of playing that game for the entire player base. So, I mean, ultimately it's down to the games developers and what they want to do and how friendly they are towards, Web3 overlays or just in-game overlays in general, having that kind of impact on their games. But just as a route of comparison, just thinking about it, quite a lot of the games I play right now or have played in the last 12 to 18 months have allowed mods or overlays to a particular degree. The only game I can think of that disallows them from a competitive point of view is Final Fantasy XIV. But that's purely for like world first raiding. It's like, if you're going to do world first, don't cheat by using overlays. But otherwise, if you don't tell us you're using them, we don't care. But I mean, I'm playing a lot of iRacing right now. I lost track of the amount of overlays I use for that. Hearthstone, I used to use overlays for that. And then you have games like Skywave that just build the overlays in, which is brilliant. And more and more of the Web3 games I'm getting into and playing right now are being mod or not necessarily like direct, you can mod the game friendly, but at least are allowing external developers to build on top of what they've made to create a better experience, whether through stat tracking or, whatever it may be. So as we're seeing that rise in popularity, not just in Web 2, but in Web 3 games as well, I think it's inevitable there's going to be some sort of crossover. And just to throw all the way back to the Fall Guys example, if you had a Web 3 overlay on Fall Guys, and it's like, oh, hey, if you win one game a day, or let's say you win 3 games in a week or whatever, and then you can earn this exclusive Fall Guys skin or exclusive like skin components, then that's something that would lead to, I think, a lion's share of that game's player base just adopting that overlay. Kind of brings up a thought. I mean, Steam kind of has an in-game overlay anyway. I mean, you can, what is it, Shift Tab? You can just open that Steam overlay. I'm not sure if Epic has the same thing. I don't play Epic's or games on the Epic Store that often, but surely it wouldn't be that difficult for these marketplaces or digital distribution platforms to do these overlays themselves. If Epic wanted to create an Epic token and go that route, they could do. I'm sure Steam could do the same, but there's, and I'm sure that Fractal could do that, and I think that could work quite well. So there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of possibility. But going back to how we kicked off this episode talking about Web3 digital distribution platforms, I think the one that is likely to be the most preeminent especially in the short-term future, is just going to be Epic Games because
Yeah.
there's so many people there and they seem quite friendly to onboard Web3 games. Fractal is the kind of number one Web3 centric platform in that respect, but they're still nowhere even close to your Steams and your Epic Games of the world. So
Yeah.
we've got a long way to come. But that's not to say I don't think it'll happen. I think give it a few years and we will see a Fractal or an Elixir kind of start to rub shoulders with the bigger boys of Web 2. But who knows?
I think my, to like sum up, would be Epic Games is the Web3 Steam at the moment. There isn't enough Web3 games to warrant a standalone Web3 Steam, at least at the moment. And I think a lot of what these platforms are building is they're building before it's necessary. Whereas I think Epic Games is more keeping the pace. At the moment, there are a few blockchain games that are worthy of having, and that's what they've integrated. And then as there's more demand, they'll probably augment other stuff. Be that it would be crazy if they had a marketplace, but whatever the case, I think Epic Games Store is the Steam for Web3 and will be going forward. I think Steam may regret their decision to not.
They'll have to change their opinion.
I think they will change. And the thing is, it's so easy for them to row back because they can just go, well, it was full of scams back then. There wasn't that much. Yeah. And really, you're going to have a hard time arguing that they just wanted to wait until it was more secure for their community. You can't. Sure. You're not. It's going to be very difficult to argue with that. I don't think they'll lose much ground if they just started implementing it. So I think those two will be the leaders. I do think that some sort of overlay may be the play, like a third-party kind of program. I'm not sure what that will be or who will win it. I do really like Fractal. I really like GameAgain's idea. I like the concept behind it, and I like where it's going. It's still some way off being the fully fleshed out thing that I want to see. Yeah. I don't think a lot of these major, and they've got so much funding. It's insane. The ones that you've never heard of after the original press release. I've got so many press releases in my inbox, and they're like, we've raised $5 million to build Web3 Steam. And then 2 years later, you click on it, they haven't had a blog post update since May 2021. Their Twitter's dead. There's like, where did that money go? Hopefully that money was given in stages.
No, I'd love to know what VCs out there are giving any money to any potential platform that pitches to them. We're going to create the Steam of Web3.
It was 2021 though, wasn't it?
But I'm subscribed to Milk Road, great newsletter, but I think it's either once a week or once every now and again they publish a list of who's getting funding, and you still see some of these projects get money. Yeah. Like, who is giving you money other than people that know nothing about the games industry?
I meant to send this to you. I saw somebody tweet the other day about Web3's dead already, and it showed how much investment Web3 received in 2021 and 2022. And then 2023, they made some claim like there's only been 13 million invested in Web3. I was like, there has probably been more than 13 million this week. Like, where are you looking? Yeah. Where are you getting your stats? Because I have personally reported God knows how many funding rounds since January.
I think
there's still a lot of money pumped in.
There's a lot of money out there. There's still VC interest, but it has cooled significantly.
Yeah, as it should.
Since 21-22. And I think that's mostly because of, one, the regulatory scares we keep getting, and then things like FTX happen, and then like, why are we putting all of our money in these platforms that are just being mismanaged and run by idiots? Which I could totally understand. But who knows? Who knows? I think the Web3 overlay, if it becomes a no-brainer, could be the play. But
I think Epic Games, I think they are the Web3 Steam at the moment, and for the foreseeable.
And we didn't even touch on the Fortnite metaverse and what they're doing with the Unreal Engine, and
Tim Sweeney refers to it as a metaverse. But maybe we do an entire episode. I wish I would give up a lot to get Tim Sweeney on this podcast. Make a 7-hour episode picking his brains about the metaverse and where he sees blockchain going.
Oh, it'd be great. He's definitely he's got some strong opinions about blockchain and cryptocurrency and Web3 technology
He's
in
done
general.
so much for gaming. Like, he's got such a proven track record that why would you people dismiss him as soon as he mentions blockchain or Web3? Look what he's done for the industry in the last 30 years. I mean, it's obscene how much of an impact he has had.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a massive impact, that's for sure. And it seems strange that, just as a off-topic final point, a lot of these huge figures in gaming, your Tim Sweeneys, your Gabens, your Bobby Kotick, a lot of these figures were renowned back in the day, and some of them still are to a certain extent, but a lot of them both have amazing track records and more recent reasons why people heavily dislike them. I think the only personality I can think of that is widely known enough in gaming circles to have avoided that is Hideo Kojima. He's probably the only one who has a near spotless record, but there's, I could go on about that topic for hours, so let's cut it there. That was episode 69 of the Minute One podcast. I think it was a great conversation. We'll see how Epic and Steam and how all these Web3 upcoming platforms move along throughout the rest of this year and beyond. I'm sure we'll visit it in future. But until then, Rob, where can we find you?
You can find me at tokengamer.io for the latest blockchain, gaming, and metaverse and AI's role in gaming. And then you can also find us on the app, the Token Gamer app, which is on iOS and Android. Currently, Wax and Polygon NFTs can be tracked on there. You can have your wallets integrated. And then we have the news page and analytics and bits and pieces. So make sure you check that out. Where else? LinkedIn, Twitter, at Token Gamer News, and then just Token Gamer on LinkedIn, where you can find some bits and pieces there. I think that's everywhere covered. John, where can people find you?
Fantastic. So for the latest Web3 and NFT and blockchain gaming news, you can head to nftinsider.io or at nftinsider_io on Twitter and Instagram and all those brilliant places. For me personally, it's at Hydropowered on everything. Twitter is the best one, although I have mostly been tweeting about iRacing and not Web3 lately. Although I have been kind of giving my opinion on a few things I've been seeing in the Twitter sphere. So, yes, say hello
Musk
to me over there.
And Zuckerberg.
The Elon Musk-Zuckerberg cage fight. That,
everybody's paying to watch that. Like, I'll watch it. I'm watching that.
Well, I love how Elon on Twitter kind of... You can never tell whether he's being serious or joking on Twitter, but obviously said that, put that message on Twitter about, I'd love to cage fight him, and Zuckerberg actually responded, and then Musk kind of start to row back by posting memes and be like, I have this move called the walrus where I'll just lay on people and all that sort of
as funny as it, like, Elon Musk looks like quite a big guy now. He's obviously, he says he doesn't work out, but he looks like a pretty big guy.
No, he's on the juice.
But
100%. He is full to the brim with steroids.
Really?
But
Do you
anyway.
reckon?
100%. If you look at his physique, it is not a normal person's physique.
He says he doesn't exercise other than lifting his kids above his head, is what he said. He looks very big, but old Mark Lizard Zuckerberg he's been killing like martial arts competitions, and he's been training. I reckon he's low key the favourite for this weird
he is.
battle.
If they ever did get in the cage, Zuckerberg would whoop Elon Musk's ass. And I don't.
What
that's
a
not
weird
some kind
situation.
of Twitter versus Facebook thing. It's just you have someone who's trained in jiu-jitsu and is winning competitions lately against some fat bloke. There's not really a
unless
competition.
Elon Musk. I saw someone tweet that everyone's gonna be like, Elon Musk's gonna get crushed, and then they'll get into the ring, and you'll see a little scar on the back of Elon Musk's head where he's had a chip put in, and he's got the latest and greatest MMA fighting techniques.
Well, supposedly they've been talking about human testing for Neuralink lately. So,
well, there you go. There's the time you test it. Get a world-class fighter's AI in the back of his head.
Oh, the main event. Hey, if that became a pay-per-view, I'd pay to see it.
Obviously, we're paying to see it. I mean, we'll stream it live. We'll have live reactions to it. I think whoever loses has to delete their platform.
Oh,
that's it. Well, really
Zuckerberg and Meta are making that Twitter competitor, aren't they? So
I've heard rumours of it. I haven't really looked into it.
Yeah, I think that's what spurned on this idea of a cage fight. is that Musk was trying to get Zuckerberg to back off. But hey, who knows? It's a weird and wacky and wonderful social media world we live in. And on the other hand, we've got Apple trying to sell you a $3,500 headset. So I don't even have an opinion on that other than if you have the money to buy one, good for you.
I kind of want one. They look really cool, but that's a bit rich. Yeah.
Anyway, let's wrap this up before we ramble on for much longer.
Yes.
Thank you very much for watching episode 69 of the Make One podcast. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, a 5-star podcast review would be fantastic. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know who you would like us to invite on next, what you want us to talk about. There's so much going on in the Web3 and the wider tech space right now. I'm sure there's plenty of topics we can dive into. But other than that, thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. We hope you tune in again next week.